It is hard to imagine living life with sirens constantly blaring, rockets blazing overhead, and suicide bombers hiding in the shadows. But this was reality for the brave military mom that you're about to meet. She served in Iraq as an Air Force captain, yet her toughest battle came once she returned home. Take a look.
The reason I wanted to join the Air Force is because my dad was an airman himself. And so I grew up as an Air Force brat. I was tasked to go to Iraq. And this was an environment like no other. You would have attacks and could be constant. So to keep my mind off of the mortar attacks and my fear of, dying, I volunteered at the hospital. When I think about the hospital, I think it was the most dramatic, unforgettable experience. What I saw was horrible, what I felt was sadness, but I kept suppressing everything. And I brought home that way of coping, and it became disastrous.
When Mary came home, she was very distant, she was very jumpy.
I cry in public places and just have no control of my emotions. And my husband did not know that I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I wasn't willing to accept it. So for 6 years, I dealt with it on my own. All this while I was still a mom and a wife, but I was dying from the inside out. Wounded Warrior Project gave me what was missing. I couldn't find a support group. And what the project ended up offering is that ability to communicate with other people who already understand you without having to explain everything. And now I do more things that I would have never thought I could do. I am not gonna quit living. I'm going to challenge myself as much as I can until I can't do anymore.
Joining me now is Mary McGriff, her husband Antonio, and her service dog, Courage. Perfect name for service dog, Courage. Mary, you were deployed to Iraq in September of 2004. Our understanding of war so often comes from what we read in the paper or what we see in television on the news. You lived it. Can you describe what it's like to be on a base in Iraq in the middle of a war?
Well, when I actually knew that I was going to Iraq, I was so naive. I didn't realize, I just had this false sense of security. I thought that by being on base, not participating in convoys, not leaving the base, that I wouldn't have to deal with those things of, oh, I could die today, or much less come out with PTSD. But I was so wrong. Within days of being there, one of our airmen was hurt by a rocket. And this was a daily issue with rockets and mortars being, shelled over to the base and not knowing where it was going to land. And one of our airmen got severely injured to where now he's a triple amputee, but he made it. Yeah. And he's doing something of himself. But
you witness that enough, and it wears on you day after day after day. Plus, you don't know who to trust often in these bases because there have been cases of suicide bombers as well. Mm-hmm. You would think when you came home in 2005, it would have gotten better for you, but it got worse. How did post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD take over your life?
Well, I had no idea that I had post-traumatic stress disorder because when you're in that type of environment and you are working to survive every day, you're very concentrated on the task itself. I kept myself busy. I mean, the volunteering at the hospital was a side thing. I worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, but it just didn't seem like enough. If I had any time to myself, I would find myself depressed. And I didn't want to be depressed. I couldn't. I was leading. I had to be strong for not just myself, but everybody that I worked with.
But finally, after 5 years, and Antonio, I know you saw the stress with your wife. She just wasn't sleeping at night. There was a lot going on. You had 2 kids at home as well. Finally, after 5 years, you sought out counseling. You accepted this diagnosis of PTSD. And then you found Wounded Warrior Project. How did they help you in a nutshell?
Well, when I started counseling, it was myself and my psychologist. And for about 1.5 years, I kept asking, is there anybody else that I could talk to? And, Privacy Act, she couldn't tell me anything, but she kept reassuring me I wasn't alone. Well, another friend of mine, an airman also, she said, Mary, have you joined the, Wounded Warrior Project? And I said, no, because it's for Army, it's for Marines. I'm not a Wounded Warrior. I don't fit that category. And she said, no, it's for all of us. So we both signed up together. And from then on, what I was missing is what I got from Wounded Warrior Project, and that was the camaraderie, the peers, folks like me that I don't have to explain in detail
They
what's going on
understand.
with me.
Yeah, they understand.
Yeah.
And now you have teamed up with them to help promote their Believe in Heroes campaign. What is that, and how can we all get involved?
Oh, Believe in Heroes is amazing. These programs wouldn't exist in the Wounded Warrior Project if it weren't for the brands that offer donations to the program.
So you buy these brands and then they will donate to the Wounded Warrior Project.
Well, if you support them, they support us. So in turn, you're actually helping us without really knowing it. But if you seek out the list that's on Wounded Warrior Project's website, you will see which companies have been very, very helpful in our program. And let me tell you, I've got to add that what has been donated, I think, has not only saved my life, but it also saved our marriage. So it is a huge accomplishment.
And it's something we're all going to check out for sure. And we mentioned how the Wounded Warrior Project helped you a great deal, but so did a group of people that you bonded with when you were over there, 3 other servicemen and women. How long has it been since you have seen them? Because I know you really formed a tight unit there.
Well, I saw Maz just a few months ago. She's in Virginia. And with Bob St. John and Johnson, we communicate on Facebook primarily. But we do keep in touch.
And that's important to you to just...
It is. We kept each other sane.
Yeah.
I mean, without each other, we would have had a breakdown, or at least I would have. But it was good to have them, to talk to them, talk with each other. Weekly, we had plans, the salsa nights on Saturday nights is something we look forward to.
So it's too bad that you haven't seen them in 10 years,
Yeah.
All of them together. We figured it was the right time now to do that. So
No
we brought
way.
them all here. Oh, yes, oh, way. Yeah, guys, come on out. This is Christina Maz Gajewski, Bob St. John, and Peter Johnson. Welcome to all of you. You're okay?
Oh, no, of course not.
But we knew how special they were. Christina, just very, very quickly, how did Mary help you all get through Iraq?
Without Mary, I think we would have, well, first, a fantastic friendship we have going here. We just saw each other, and it's like we never didn't skip a beat. And Mary pulled us out of our shells. She's one of these people that goes in and just grabs people.
Well,
and says,
we're glad you found each other at a very difficult time. We thank you so much for your service. Continued good health to all of you. Thank you so much. For more information on Wounded Warrior Project and the Believe in Heroes campaign, head to our website, meredithvieirashow.com.